Discovery. But first, joining us for his first national television interview is Abe Abdelhadi. He says he dated Jodi several times and then spoke to her after Travis Alexander's death. Abe, thank you for joining us. First of all, we really do appreciate it. Tell us how you met Jodi and what your relationship was and what it was like.
Start off innocuous. We met at a regional event. I was introduced to her by a friend in common, and we got into each other's cars. She told me that she liked my energy and that kind of thing.
Oh, was she into that kind of thing? Was she sort of
energy person?
Spiritual? And
yeah,
all?
Spiritual. You know, she kind of came off a little flighty, but regardless, she was cute. And
yeah.
I thought, what the heck? And so we swapped cards and started a phone conversation. And then what had occurred over the next couple of months, we would talk. I didn't see her at our Las Vegas convention, but when we got back into town, we would be at the same events, and then we'd go out afterwards, and we started sitting next to each other at events. And then I asked her to a lunch. We went to a lunch, and then we actually had a dinner date. And this was probably at this point now from September. When we finally went out was end of December of 2006. Now, what had occurred then, I thought was kind of interesting. We went to dinner in Pasadena. We walked around. We went to Barnes & Noble. We ended up in the spiritual book section, philosophy section. She asked me about my religious background. I shared that with her pretty bluntly. I had been religious as a child, and by my mid-20s was doing something else. And she told me she was dabbling in Mormonism.
Dabbling in Mormonism.
Right. And that was her term. That's the quote, dabbling in Mormonism. And so I asked her bluntly, well, who's the other guy? And she said, what do you mean? I said, is it your ex that you used to live with? She said, no, I was looking into faiths, and this seemed like a good one. And I said, well, that's not exactly for the faint of heart. I mean, you've got no caffeine, no beer, no premarital sex. There's just a bunch of restrictions. It's a very tough religion if you're going to just jump into a religion. So I thought it was an odd thing to say that I'm dabbling in Mormonism.
Jumping in here, was that your last date? You guys did not have sex, correct?
Well,
no, we did not.
They
no,
hooked up a little bit. Tell us about the
yeah,
hookup.
well, that night we did get together a little bit. I walked her to her car, and we were in the parking garage, and she was pretty enthusiastic. She wasn't afraid of oncoming cars or anything like that. Some girls get really skittish when cars are coming. They don't want to get caught by their parents or something. She was actually very comfortable, and at one point, I made an innocent little reach. This really didn't get much past high school, but I made a little reach to find out, candidly speaking, if she was wearing thong panties or not. You know, we all have our peccadillos. And so when I realized that she was, I made a little joke, and I said, that's not magic underwear. And that was, and I was alluding to the undergarments. Right. I was making it, bad taste. It was it was a Mormon joke. It was in bad taste, but, when in the moment. And so I made that joke, and I said, this isn't magic underwear, and she said, but there's magic in them. And so I thought, okay, this is fun. She's going to be fun. So the next day I called her, didn't get a call back. The second day she called me back, and she explained to me that she was getting back together with her ex, and that she felt guilty. She felt like she was cheating on him with me, even though we only really got together the once.
Now, Abe, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to push the stories forward a little bit. You maintained a phone conversation over a long period of time. You had a friendship after that. You didn't really go anywhere. And then she was constantly obsessing about Travis and sharing all her obsessions with you about him. And then you find out he dies. Tell me about that moment, where you were and what you thought.
Well, we had all just gotten back from this Cancun trip that we had all won. And, Travis and I were acquainted. We had a lot of good friends in common, but he and I were never tight. And he wasn't on that trip.
And I'm going to stop you again there and say, you shared with me that, the defense is trying to make Travis a bad guy who was exploiting this girl. And you tell me that you never heard any women speak ill of him. He wasn't somebody who was going out there and exploiting other people. There was no reputation. And
none whatsoever. He didn't have that reputation. We've all been in the same business for a number of years. Reputations get spread around. We were all, higher up in the company. We kind of all know each other or of each other. I never heard boo.
Can I have a question, jump in? Abe, when you heard that Travis died, did you for 1 second at all think that she had anything to do with it?
Absolutely. As soon as we got off the plane and I got my phone off of airplane mode and my phone was blowing up with texts, I told my buddy who traveled on that trip with us, I know who did it.
Oh, my God.
Because for the previous year and a half, about every 6 weeks to 2 months, her and I would get into a conversation. And she would call me ostensibly. We never saw each other socially, but she was always calling me. And so...
And she was obsessed with him, with Travis? She would talk to you about him and her obsession with him?
Yeah, it seemed kind of childish because in hindsight, obviously it wasn't, but it seemed kind of childish because she would say things like, I don't know what I'll do if I can't have him, or, you know, he would be such a great father to my children. And I would tell her flat out, I go, well, you became a Mormon, you're a pretty girl, you know, drop into any ward, which is a Mormon church, by the way, if you don't know. I go, drop into any ward and you'll meet a great guy. And, you know, so just let it go, you know, don't be attached to a result. What are you supposed to do? And so when we got off the plane that night, I don't know why I knew, but I knew. And then the next day, because I got home at 3 in the morning, I slept maybe 2 hours, I woke up, ate some breakfast, and I called her about 8 o'clock, 8:30 or so, and just, you know, I was fishing. I called her to fish. I called her to see what was going on. I asked her where she was. She said she was still up in Wairika, where I knew her to be. I hadn't talked to her probably since about March or April. This was now June. And she said she was, you know, tending bar or waitressing someplace. And,
so you thought you were talking to a killer. Did you feel strange about that? Because you felt that she did it.
And you were with
my
him.
blood pressure was through the roof. I mean, it was through the roof. And I was walking when I did. I went outside to walk so that I could work off some nervous energy because I was trying to sound like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for you, when I knew she did it. And then what happened was I felt guilty because within about 10, 15 minutes, she starts crying because I'm asking her these different questions. Hey, did he ever have a bunch of people over to the house? Did he ever do these in-home parties for the business? Did maybe somebody 6 degrees of separation? Who did you see? And then she's saying, well, you know, he had a lot of people over. He would have these USC game parties and everything else. It could have been anybody. Oh, my God, this is so terrible. And then she starts crying. And then I feel like an idiot. And then about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks later, I get a call kind of out of the blue from her. And I answered the phone. I said, hey, what's up? And she was like, hey, I wanted to thank you for your maturity and your friendship, which is just such a crock thing to say. And I asked her how the service went, because I assumed she was going to the funeral in Riverside.
Yeah.
And she said that she didn't go. She said that she had caught a flat just outside of Fresno or somewhere in Central California. It took 6 hours for the 3A guy to get out there. By the time he got out there, she figured the services were over, so she turned around and went home.
All right.
And then that's when my neck started to crawl again, because I'm thinking...
You knew that was a lie.
Yeah.